Today, we're taking a look at the best and most successful indie and alternative cover songs. Firstly, we're just looking at songs from the current century. We all know the classic cover hits from the 20th century, but in this video, we're going to be focusing on the last couple of decades or so. Just to add some stipulations, which always make a video fun to watch, this video will just include studio versions of cover songs released by bands themselves as singles, B-sides or album tracks. That means no live cover versions, mainly because there are plenty of live cover versions of songs from artists who appear on Radio 1 Live Lounge, Like a Version, etc., plus in their live shows themselves. We're also excluding songs recorded for covers compilations, whether that's for charity or otherwise. It's a shame as there are some great classic covers from these compilations, but we could be here all day if we go through all of these too. First though, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. When it comes to indie cover singles, there's only one place to start.
The Hounds are the lover calling.
An upstart indie band from the northeast taking on a Kate Bush classic was bold enough, but releasing it as a single was even more ambitious. But their up-tempo, guitar-heavy take proved to be incredibly popular. Not only was it the band's best performing single, reaching number 8 in the UK chart, it outdid Kate Bush herself, who only got to number 18. NME named the Futureheads version as their best single of 2005, beating out Arctic Monkeys' I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor. The Futureheads set a pretty high bar when it comes to being commercially successful with an indie take on a cover song, but here's one of the most commercially successful covers of all time.
You okay, and you've been hit by, you've been struck by a smooth criminal.
I was trying to keep the video more towards the indie scene, but it's impossible not to include Alien Ant Farm when discussing covers. Taking on Michael Jackson is difficult enough, but the new metal cover of Smooth Criminal has become by far their most popular and well-known hit. It reached number 3 in the UK chart, beating Michael Jackson's original chart placing of number 8, and their version has over 500 million streams on Spotify to date. The music video was a regular on rock music channels during the 2000s, with its numerous Michael Jackson references personally approved by the man himself. But moving swiftly away from new metal now, Feeling Good is probably the most covered song where people don't really know where it originally came from.
Oh, me, and I'm feeling good.
It turns out it was from the 1964 West End musical The Roar of the Grease Paint, The Smell of the Crowd, but it's more synonymous with classic versions by Nina Simone, Sammy Davis Jr., and more recently, Michael Bublé. However, in 2001, Muse surprisingly recorded a version to be included on their breakthrough album Origin of Symmetry, which they subsequently released as a double A-side single with Hypermusic. It reached an impressive number 24 in the UK charts, making it the highest charting version of the song in the UK. NME ranked it as their greatest cover song of all time in 2010, beating the Beatles' Twist and Shout, Johnny Cash's Hurt, and Jimi Hendrix's versions of Hey Joe and All Along the Watchtower. Although they may not have had such wide popular acclaim for their cover if this was the version they recorded in the studio. Now, a classic Burt Bacharach composed hit, recorded by the likes of Dusty Springfield and Dionne Warwick, later turned into a raunchy lo-fi indie hit.
I just don't know what to do with myself.
I'm not saying having a Sofia Coppola directed music video of Kate Moss pole dancing is the reason the White Stripes version of the song was successful, but it didn't do it any harm either. The White Stripes were growing in popularity after White Blood Cells, which included another song with an iconic video, Fell in Love with a Girl. But their next album, Elephant, really broke them into the mainstream with The Hardest Button to Button and particularly Seven Nation Army, which would grow into a universal sports anthem of course. But their cover of I Just Don't Know What to Do With Myself reached number 13 in the UK chart, their 5th highest ever position. Although, the music video being released as a DVD single version definitely did help with that though. And now, here's this channel's obligatory new rave inclusion with Klaxons. After taking the indie scene by storm with their frenzied synths, Klaxons added some edge to the hit 90s dance track Not Over Yet by Grace. The original reached number 6 in the UK charts, and regularly ranks among the all-time great 90s dance singles. But the DIY energy of Klaxons on their version gave the track a new lease of life, with their cover charting at number 13, Klaxons' second best ever performing single. It's a track that has become an iconic part of two different genres and eras, as both a 90s dance classic and a key new rave staple. Next up, we have a pop cover of a trip-hop sample of a jazz flute cover from a neoclassical opera by George Gershwin. Simple, right? Lana Del Rey's critically acclaimed album, Norman Fucking Rockwell, featured Doin' Time, cover of the hit single from Sublime, which was released posthumously after the death of singer Bradley Nowell, aged just 28. Sublime themselves sampled jazz flautist Herbie Mann's bossa nova cover of Summertime from the opera Porgy and Bess, and utilised the song's opening lyrics for the chorus. Lana Del Rey's version matched the original's trip-hop style, but with her own signature dreamy take on it. And the single release saw her reference the classic film Attack of a 50-Foot Woman in its video. While it wasn't a chart-topping single for her, it has since gone platinum in the US, reaching over 800 million streams on Spotify to date. Lana Del Rey then did a version of the original Summertime afterwards, just to go full circle on the track's origins.
And the living is easy.
Next, it's Johnny Cash, but not the one you might be thinking.
If you could read my mind, love, what a tale my thoughts could tell.
The final years of Johnny Cash's life saw him record a number of covers as part of his American Recordings albums. The most well known are his iconic versions of Hurt and Personal Jesus, but one of the most heart-wrenching songs he recorded was his cover of Gordon Lightfoot's If You Could Read My Mind. It was recorded in the weeks following the death of his wife, June Carter Cash, after she had told him before passing to continue working, and he insisted on working with Rick Rubin despite his own declining health. The songs compiled on American 5 100 Highways were recorded between May and August 2003, before he himself passed away shortly afterwards in September. The album topped the charts upon its eventual release in 2006, his first number one in 37 years. While his cover of Hurt is powerful and emotional with its poignant lyrics, you can hear a quieter, more resigned sadness and sense of grief in his voice on If You Could Read My Mind. Now, our second Kate Bush cover of the list is Placebo with their version of Running Up That Hill.
And if I only could make a deal with God and get him to...
While plenty of artists have taken on this classic, Placebo's cover reached an impressive number 44 in the UK chart after it was used in a season premiere for the TV show The OC. Although despite this revival of the song by Placebo, they wouldn't come close to the impact of Stranger Things, which saw Kate Bush finally achieve just her second UK number one, 37 years after her only previous number one, Wuthering Heights. Placebo's version remains popular though, with its stripped-back instrumentation and pulsating heartbeat bass line. Next, you'll have to bear with me.
In the middle of the night, when I'm in this dream, it's like a million little stars.
Yes, that is Taylor Swift, and I know she's not indie or particularly alternative, except for her indie folk era. But on her Grammy-winning breakthrough album, Fearless, and its subsequent re-recording, the track listing included Untouchable. Not only is it the only cover Taylor Swift has released to date, but the original was by the little-known Christian rock band Luna Halo, sounding like this. With Luna Halo hailing from Nashville, we can assume that she picked up on the track on her early country circuit days, but they remained a band who never really broke out of their local scene. To date, they have around 28,000 monthly listeners on Spotify, mostly from curious Taylor Swift fans you'd assume, and their original version of Untouchable has just over 1 million streams, by far their biggest song, whereas Taylor Swift's version is on over 70 million streams. Now, we move on to some cover versions that weren't hugely successful commercially in terms of being released as singles or hitting huge streaming numbers, but they're worthy of a mention all the same. Starting with James Blake.
You're my blood, you're my holy wine. You taste so bitter and so sweet.
For James Blake, there were plenty to choose from, including from his 2020 Covers EP, which included versions of Billie Eilish's When the Party's Over and Joy Division's Atmosphere, plus his first top 40 single, a bass-heavy cover of Feist's Limit to Your Love, but it was his cover of A Case of You that earned a spot on this video. While his debut album earned critical acclaim for his unique experimentation with electronic styles, he put the synths aside for his cover of this Joni Mitchell classic. It was an early demonstration of his vocal talents, alongside the classical piano training he received as a child. The cover was originally released on his EP, Enough Thunder, but was then also packaged with his debut album as a deluxe edition. The album earned a 9.0 rating from Pitchfork, who would later rank it as their 12th best album of 2011. And now, how about when a band does a cover so good that the original band includes it in one of their own releases too? LCD Soundsystem's legendary track All My Friends was voted by both Pitchfork and The Guardian as the best single of 2007. But before the year had ended, this version recorded by Franz Ferdinand was the opening track on LCD Soundsystem's digital compilation EP, A Bunch of Stuff. Franz Ferdinand finally released it themselves too in 2009 as the B-side to their single, Can't Stop Feeling. Now, if we were including live lounge covers, this would have been very high on the list. But there is another cover that the Arctic Monkeys did officially release, but with a very different genre.
Baby, I'm yours. Baby, I'm yours. And I'll be yours.
In a collaboration with the short-lived indie band The 747s, the two bands put together some impressive harmonies on a cover of Baby I'm Yours for a B-side on the Arctic Monkeys' standalone single, Leave Before the Lights Come On. Baby I'm Yours was originally released in 1965 by Barbara Lewis, but has become another popular standard, with versions from artists as varied as Cilla Black, Casey and the Sunshine Band, and Cher, but none stand out as much as the Arctic Monkeys' surprising take on it. Next up, a band that had plenty of covers to choose from, Los Campesinos. The deluxe edition of their debut album includes a number of covers, including Black Flag, Bikini Kill, and Deerhoof. And since then they've released a few more, like The Beautiful South's I Love You But You're Boring, and recently Wait by The Secret Stars, but the cover included here is their version of the Pavement classic Frontwards. With the tempo increased and some early Los Campesinos twee sprinkled in, some may argue that the cover is an improvement on the Pavement original. Now, it's a cover of a Courtney Love track, but no, not that Courtney Love. The band Courtney Love was formed by Seattle musician Lois Maffeo in 1989. They were completely unrelated to the person Courtney Love, and the choice of name was purely coincidence apparently. The band Courtney Love only released a few EPs without much recognition, but the song The Second Most Beautiful Girl in the World was picked up by Lindsay Jordan, aka Snail Mail. Originally it was just a track she performed live on her Lush tour, but eventually she recorded a studio version which was included in the 2019 reissue of her debut EP Habits. This time it's a crossover between the New York Riot Girl scene and the Pointer Sisters. After the breakup of the legendary Bikini Kill, frontwoman Kathleen Hanna formed the dance punk inspired Tigre. Their biggest hit to date is Decepticon, but on their last album This Island, which took a more poppy direction, they took on 80s dance pop classic I'm So Excited. It surprisingly worked really well, with their own signature electro beat and energetic vocals, and it became a fun fan favourite. Sticking with electro pop for a moment, here's Passion Pit. Taking the world of indie-tronica by storm, Passion Pit's debut album, Manners, included this cover of the classic Cranberries hit Dreams as a bonus track on its extended edition after it became a regular on their live set lists. It was an ambitious choice, with the Cranberries' debut single so well known for Dolores O'Riordan's tender vocals, but Passion Pit's electronic take on the jangly guitar original did it justice, with its lush atmospheric synths. We've already had one great Michael Jackson cover on here, and I'm not going to acknowledge the Fall Out Boy cover of Beat It, but there is another MJ cover to include. Discovery was a project consisting of Rostam Batmanglij of Vampire Weekend and Wesley Miles of Rah Rah Riot before each band became successful. After these bands had released their debut albums, the duo returned to finally release an LP as Discovery. With futuristic whirling synths and auto-tuned vocals across the album, their cover of the Jackson 5's I Want You Back couldn't be more stylistically different. But in a weird way, the cover really works. The trance-style bass synth matches the energy of the original bass line, and the song's catchy melodies stand out even among the layers of synth soundscapes. Keeping with the electro theme, here's some Hot Chip now.
This gun's for hire, even if we're just dancing in the dark.
After covering Bruce Springsteen's classic Dancing in the Dark in their live shows, they decided to take their arrangement to the studio to be released as the lead track on an EP, which included remixes and alternative versions of tracks from their album Why Make Sense. Paying homage to Springsteen wasn't enough for Hot Chip here though. They had also been covering the previously mentioned LCD Soundsystem track All My Friends, and they seamlessly segue into a sample of it towards the end of their Dancing in the Dark cover. Two classic songs that usually wouldn't be paired together, but Hot Chip definitely pulled it off. Now, maybe not the most well-known cover, but it earned its inclusion for bravely taking on a classic ABBA song.
Oh, I'm sick and tired of everything. You called me last night from Glasgow.
For the B-side to their single, Tears for Affairs, Camera Obscura stripped back the disco beats of the original ABBA arrangement of Super Trouper and added their own melancholic twee sheen. One of ABBA's strengths was mixing heartfelt lyrics with their incredibly catchy melodies and dancey instrumentation, with Super Trouper a great example of this. Tracy Ann Campbell's breathy vocals on the Camera Obscura version accentuated the vulnerability expressed in the verse lyrics, which talk of loneliness and exhaustion. Playing keys here was Camera Obscura's Carrie Lander, who sadly passed away in 2015 from a rare type of bone cancer. Their last album had been 2013's Desire Lines, which Carrie Lander had been able to appear on despite her illness, and it took until 2024 for the band to return with a further album, Look to the East, Look to the West. Now, I know I said no covers compilations, and this is from a film soundtrack that's mostly covers, but I'm going to make an exception here.
I'd say goodbye to love. There are no tomorrows.
The soundtrack for the film Minions: The Rise of Gru consisted of covers of 70s hits by the likes of Tame Impala, St. Vincent, and Caroline Polachek, but it's Phoebe Bridgers' cover of The Carpenters' Goodbye to Love that's the standout track. Not many vocalists will be able to live up to Karen Carpenter, but Phoebe Bridgers' subdued cover is a surprisingly heart-wrenching inclusion for a kids' movie soundtrack. The slowed down tempo and airy vocals make it an emotionally striking tribute, although the guitar solo doesn't quite shred like in the original. The next song is by an artist who has worked with Phoebe Bridgers and also released a subdued cover of a pop icon. Cera Tudson won a Grammy Award along with Phoebe Bridgers and the rest of Boy Genius for her production work on their album The Record, but she also fronts her band Illuminati Hotties. In between her successful debut album Kiss Your Frenemies and her 2020 mixtape released to fulfill a contractual agreement with her label Tiny Engines after parting ways, she released a number of non-album singles over 2019. This includes a cover of a Whitney Houston classic I Wanna Dance With Somebody. Out were the up-tempo drum machines and synths and powerful vocals, and instead her version was a slowed acoustic version with more tender vocals. Moving away from sad versions of songs now, we have the emo legends Algernon Cadwallader, whose version of the Beatles' This Boy was nearly chosen just for how silly it is, but it was in fact on a covers compilation too. Instead, here's their cover of Elvis Costello's No Action.
I don't wanna kiss you, I don't wanna touch. And I don't wanna see you 'cause I don't miss.
Taken from Elvis Costello's iconic new wave defining album This Year's Model, Algernon Cadwallader's long-awaited self-titled compilation in 2018 included a previously unreleased cover of No Action. With their trademark finger-tapping guitar sound reined in, the cover is still distinctively very Algernon, with Peter Helmus's frenzied vocal take contrasting the ever-cool Elvis Costello. And finally, a lesser-known but fantastic emo band that deserves credit for swinging for the fences on the Sheryl Crow cover and absolutely nailing it.
If it makes you happy, it can't be that bad.
It's hard to top a song that won a Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance, but the fantastically named Michael Cera Palin had a go at it on only their second ever EP, I don't know how to explain. They added their own indie punk style to the song and gave it an energy not matched by the original. Vocally, Sheryl Crow is hard to match, but Elliot Braben's emo-tinged vocals are just as powerful in the big belting choruses. After 2 excellent EPs, they finally released their debut album in March 2025, We Could Be Brave, and it was worth a long wait. And so, that's the end of the list of studio recorded covers, but there are a couple of live recorded covers that we can't not mention. We return to the White Stripes once again, this time for their cover of Jolene. Recorded live as part of their Under Blackpool Lights live DVD, their performance of Jolene was popular enough to be released as a standalone single in 2004, reaching number 16 in the UK chart. What's even more notable is that they did in fact previously record a version of Jolene in the studio, which was used as a B-side to the single Hello Operator in 2000. Despite this, it's the live Under Blackpool Lights version that's remembered. Jack White is more untethered and emotional in his live vocal performance, and even Dolly herself complimented them on their fuzz guitar version. And now our last honourable mention, The Killers with Dire Straits, Romeo and Juliet.
Juliet, the dice was loaded from the start, and I bet that you were.
It was recorded live for the Channel 4 show Live from Abbey Road, and used as the B-side for their single For Reasons Unknown. Originally, Johnny Borrell of Razorlight was going to join them on the performance, but he was unable to due to sickness, which may have been a good thing in the end. Later that year, it was also included on their compilation Sawdust, which featured other covers of theirs, including Joy Division's Shadowplay from the film Control. But it's their cover of Romeo and Juliet that earned an honourable mention. Brandon Flowers referred to it as one of the finest songs ever with brilliant melodies, and he certainly did justice to the original with his expressive take on the heartfelt lyrics. And so that is the end of our list now. Please check out the Spotify playlist in the description, which includes the full list of tracks, and let me know in the comments if there are any covers that I didn't mention. I may also do a follow-up video of live cover versions, because there are so many brilliant live covers out there, so let me know any you'd like to see included for that too. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe.